Thunder Grunt.
Hey guys,
Bob.
Hey, Bob.
welcome to Writers Blockbusters, where the show that treats the final edit of a movie like it's the script. And we're gonna go around the table and introduce ourselves and say our Twitter handles.
I'm Jimmy George. I am a screenwriter and full-time script consultant, and my Twitter handle is @JimmyRGeorge.
I am Jamie Nash. I'm a screenwriter. My Twitter handle is Jamie_Nash.
And I'm Bob Rose. My Twitter handle is @ThunderGruntBob. And today we're going to talk about a movie that everyone on Earth has seen.
Hopefully.
Oh, come on. They all have seen it. Even there's probably people in far parts of countries we've never heard of that have seen Die Hard.
Yes.
Right. We're going to talk about Die Hard.
Yes.
We're going to do the light version of the movies that made us.
Yeah.
This is our post almost made it in time for Christmas episode.
Yes.
Well, here, we'll look at it like this. It's almost New Year's. Everyone just watched Die Hard.
Your tree's still up.
But everyone just watched Die Hard for the holidays. Now they can listen to us chat about
Talk
it.
about it.
Incidentally, Die Hard was released in July.
Yeah.
FYI.
That's really odd, isn't it?
Yeah, the
It
studio
is
didn't know.
odd.
That's what I remember. I remember it being a summer movie, going to see it in the summer.
That's kind of like the death blow of the argument.
Yeah, it is.
The
It is.
stupid Christmas
The studio
argument.
didn't think it was a Christmas movie.
Right. It was in July. But yeah, we're also doing this on the heels of Netflix releasing the Movies That Made Us episode about Die Hard, which before we start, we all have watched.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was very informative to the script.
Yes.
And we'll get into that, right?
Yes.
Yep. Good
So-
show in general for all the episodes.
I'd almost say if you're listening to this and you have the opportunity, maybe go listen to that or watch that and then listen to us.
Supplemental.
It's almost supplemental to what we're going to talk about today. But Die Hard, Jamie, who wrote this shit?
Die Hard was written by Jeb Stuart and Stephen E. D'Souza. Jeb Stuart,
The writer
was,
of Street Fighter.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So I early in my screenwriting career, I saw Stephen D'Souza at a live event giving a lecture or whatever, and he was really fun. He was a really interesting, funny guy.
He seems like a cool guy. His commentaries on DVDs, I remember being very entertaining.
No, he was awesome.
Yeah.
I remember the guy who did the Gladiator was there too.
Oh, wow.
Road
Really?
Gladiator?
Yeah, what's the guy's name? It was really interesting. This is a really cool.
Is he also the
event
writer
to watch.
of Gladiator 2?
I
Remember
don't know
that?
about that? I
That
do.
script that was
yeah.
insane, where he was going through the ages. And
This was like a pitch fest.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
remember I
okay.
went to.
Where was it?
It was L.A. It was,
Okay.
I can't remember where, but somewhere in L.A. I went to. Did my lame pitches.
Gotcha. Okay.
Made no money. Spent a lot of money, but saw two
Spent
cool
a-
guys. Yeah. So Jeb Stuart, Die Hard was his first screenplay. I know in the Netflix special, he kind of hinted at
us just reiterating
yeah.
Netflix special.
in the Netflix, we shouldn't even say its name, like we're competitors. In the Movies That Made Us, Jeb Stuart said that he was writing novels and stuff at the time. However, I kind of Wikipedia'd him. Maybe I should have done Amazon. I couldn't find his novels, so maybe he was a struggling novelist or something. And like all of us, he was just trying to do what he could do to make money.
And also, this is based on a novel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's
This is
based
an
on a novel.
adaptation. This isn't.
Yes.
Which is probably
it's not known as an adaptation.
probably where we should actually start. Is it's this what's the guy's name? Robert Thorpe, I think was
Yep.
the guy's name.
I think Richard Thorpe.
Richard Thorpe.
I could be wrong.
Let me look it up super quick.
But yeah,
Shame on us.
Yeah, there's so much about Die Hard that's misunderstood because it seems like it's just kind of an plucked out of the sky genius.
Right.
And it's like, no, this is a thing that actually was a writer that's had books adapted before with Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
The Frank Sinatra being offered the part. And
God.
Yeah.
Yep.
This
Yes.
is really odd. Just
It was really odd to
really
hear
odd
that.
stuff to
The name
know.
is Roderick Thorpe.
Roderick Thorpe.
Yep. And
We were both wrong.
we call him Hot Rod. Hot Rod. No, he wrote this novel called Nothing Lasts Forever, which was a sequel to another book that was, I think the first book was The Detective, if I remember right.
And that's the one that the Frank Sinatra movie.
And that was the Frank
Yeah.
Sinatra movie. And then this one came Nothing Lasts Forever, and it was similar to Die Hard in that it was terrorists take over a skyrise. I think he had an estranged daughter in the novel, and I think that I remember reading this. Even I know this is in the Netflix special, but I think his daughter dies. I've never found this book. I've always wanted to read it. I think his daughter dies, and then in the end, somehow that inspires the third act or something.
Oh, really?
It's a vengeance thing.
Like
Okay.
something like that.
She's the one who falls off the Hans Gruber style death.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So
So
they kept the visual and they replaced the character.
so
They
Jeb,
didn't want it to be depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
so Jeb Stuart came on to adapt it, and then he didn't really know how to adapt it, and apparently he got in a fight with his wife
Mhm.
and was driving in a car like after he ran out on his wife and was driving angry, and then all of a sudden there was this refrigerator in front of him, and while he was driving, and he ran through it, and it turned out it was just the box of a refrigerator, but it kind of made him gave him this epiphany that that's what the movie should be about. It shouldn't be about the daughter. It should be about somebody who has a fight with their wife and then, doesn't get the chance to say sorry or patch things up
Yeah.
before the terrorists take over the skyscraper.
Right.
Thankful for that refrigerator.
Yeah.
Right.
So he brought that to it. And then later on, Steven D'Souza came in, I think more to punch up after they had Bruce Willis involved. They wanted it to be
Who
more
was then
humorous.
known as a comedic talent on TV.
Then
Right.
known as comedic talent, moonlighting.
Moonlighting.
He was doing this funny stuff, Seagram's Golden Wine Coolers ads.
It's awesome.
And they, after everybody else passed on the first draft of this movie, the Jeb Stuart one, Bruce Willis was brought in, and then they kind of punched it up and made it more fun and funny, which was kind of the Steven D'Souza draft.
And
Well, go ahead.
wasn't like 90 pages of it written while they were shooting?
That was my next thing.
Keep
yeah.
going.
So then when they started to shoot, they kept rewriting.
This is all the Netflix special pretty much,
yeah,
right?
this is it. So then on the
Thanks, Netflix.
so then
When I
We're
watched
out.
it, I was like, dude, this just steamrolled our episode.
yeah. so then once there, they started rewriting a lot in the set. The big ones that I always remember, even outside of this episode, the face-to-face meeting was something that they didn't even think of until after the fact.
Maybe the best part in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of stuff. I don't really believe. I don't know. I know the movies that episode said that 95%. My gut says it was more to like comedy punch-ups and the scene work and all
like
that
they
stuff.
already had it there. They were just tweaking it.
Yeah, and then a
Yeah.
couple other bigger things. And while that might feel like 90% because you're rewriting the scenes,
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't think it was a situation like Gladiator. I remember that guy when he stood up in front of us. The Steven D'Souza didn't say that when he stood up in front of us, but the Gladiator guy stood up and said
stood up at
this Pitch Fest I went to years ago.
okay.
The Gladiator guy, who I can't remember his name, he said that movie was legitimately written on set every single day.
Insane.
Yeah, he told this whole long story about that, and it stuck with me because he went detail for detail of what was rewritten and how he'd be in like a tent on location with a typewriter or something.
It's also a lesson on movies just in general.
Yeah.
Like, don't think you're just going to write a script and that's the movie at all.
Casablanca is kind of famous for that. Chinatown's famous for that. They were all written
Great
on
movies
set.
can come out of duress and
Yeah.
speed. It's
and
not,
that's why we review the finished film
As
for
the script.
as the script.
because it's kind of useless to just go. We can't ever know that we got the right copy, the right
Right,
version.
exactly.
Is it a shooting script? What is we can't know.
Yep. Did they make it after? They made the script after the movie
It's a
came
futile
out.
thing to do.
Yeah.
But in this case, we were going to review the Roderick Thorpe novel as the script.
We all read it and then decided not
And then
to.
we decided not to.
Well, also, where did this place in the box office, Jamie?
that is an excellent question, which I put my research team on earlier today and came up with some answers. Here's what they dug up.
Bling.
right.
Well, Well, first of all, this movie made a grand total of $83 million at the box office.
Domestic.
Seems kind of lame nowadays,
Yeah.
but
That's 1988.
Okay.
That's a long time ago.
By the way,
Yeah.
when this movie came out, it was a juggernaut. Like, I saw this movie dozens of times at the movie theater. I just couldn't see it enough.
Wow.
And it sort of ended action movies for me. I was like, after I saw this, I was like, I don't think I will ever see an action movie that good. And I don't know that I have in some ways. Different types of action movies, but even as a kid, I was like, I am done with action. I've seen the greatest
The
movie.
pinnacle.
The pinnacle.
How about that?
It made
I don't think I saw it in theaters, to be honest, but we're a different age.
Yeah.
I was too young.
it was a weird
Yeah.
cross. Like, this is a movie my father liked and I liked because
Yeah,
he liked
yeah.
cowboy movies and action.
Right.
He would have
That's-
liked Frank Sinatra kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah.
So
I think I went back
Yeah.
after like the 90s. I went back.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
no, but my father who wouldn't see like he saw Star Wars movies, but he wouldn't like Alien or something. But he loved this movie, so I remember this movie being really a big movie for me as a kid. But anyway, in 1988, Die Hard finished 7th on the top list of movies domestic, right behind great movies like Crocodile Dundee 2.
Hell yeah.
Another movie my dad really liked. He loved that Paul Hogan guy.
I actually have a framed poster of Crocodile Dundee 2.
Yeah, I think I was there when you bought it, actually. It was
You
at a horror
were!
convention.
Yeah, it was at a horror convention.
Yeah, I remember.
I got it for like $5.
Right. It's like Horror Find or something.
Yeah, right. yeah.
Which is where I go for my Crocodile Dundee.
Dundee
posters.
posters, right.
That totally makes sense.
So Crocodile Dundee 2, Twins, another movie my father liked. I don't know why this is becoming the movies my father liked episode. He didn't like any of the rest of these.
That's a whole podcast. The movies my father liked.
Yeah, I don't think he went for any of the rest of these. So Big, I don't know they saw that. Coming to America was 3. Who Framed Roger Rabbit was 2, and number 1 was Rain Man that year.
Great year.
I can't believe Roger Rabbit wouldn't be one in that list.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
but that's awesome.
That's a hell of a list.
It's a hell of a list.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. My
gosh.
memory of Roger
That top
Rabbit.
10 is.
My
Wow.
memory of Roger Rabbit, not that it didn't earn it, but I'm surprised that it's number 2. I thought it kind of just lived up to expectations.
Only one
is the way my
sequel.
memory was. Yeah, but 156 million is a lot.
Jesus.
I mean, yeah, that list is like my whole childhood.
Yeah, that's a hell of a list.
Yep.
I'm getting nostalgic. Just listen.
God,
just
just give
think
me a
about
time
it.
machine. I don't
let
want
me
to be
let me
here
give you
anymore.
number 8. Let me give you number 8. You'll like this. Naked Gun for the Files of Police Squad.
God, you're gonna make me cry, man.
Damn,
You're gonna
dude.
make me cry.
Okay, well I'll bring it back.
Give me 9 and 10.
Number 9 was Cocktail.
I don't know that one.
Hippie shakes. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay,
know that.
but this one's gonna get you. Beetlejuice, number 10.
God, what a year.
Isn't it nuts that Beetlejuice isn't higher?
Yeah.
Like now, how
You
we
just
look at
think about
backwards
it.
at
Yeah.
it.
And then
That's- yeah.
also on that list, some favorites: Scrooged
Mm.
and
Yep.
Fish Called Wanda.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Great.
Still, just
All originals. Well, this is an adaptation, actually. Technically.
This counts
as an
adaptation.
Damn
this
it.
is not original.
And number 15, Jimmy's favorite, Beaches.
right.
Yeah.
Although,
Midler, man.
is it weird too that while this is an adaptation, can you argue that John McClane himself is not an adaptation? 'Cause he's
Interesting.
different name
Different
than the
name.
book, right? It was changed, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So John McClane is almost an original creation,
And he's
in
not a
an
hard-nosed
adaptation.
detective.
No, he's
Yeah.
almost an original creation within an adaptation. It's
Yeah.
like a premise adaptation.
Premise adaptation.
It's not really
Yeah.
an adaptation in the
Yeah.
traditional
Very
sense.
interesting.
Very weird.
Yeah.
Right. Let's talk more about Netflix now. What?
It's all relevant, dude.
So this also came at a time. I think not. It might have ended action movies for Jamie, but this also came at a time where the king of action movies produced it, Joel Silver. Right.
I think Lethal Weapon was the year before.
Yeah.
Also a Christmas movie. I can't remember if that one was released during Christmas.
It's a loose Christmas movie. It has like one or
It's
two.
got
I mean, there's
Christmas Tree
Christmas-
Farm.
stuff everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, there's Christmas stuff,
Yeah.
but
It's
even less so than Die Hard.
Yeah.
Die Hard has it in the actual score.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like the
There's
argument
4 Christmas
for-
movies
right.
in the score.
And this podcast is not about if it's a Christmas movie. We want
I
to make
want to
that
talk
clear.
about that at the end.
We can talk about it, but we're saving it.
is Die Hard a Hallmark movie?
No, it's
no
too.
conflict, James.
It's not good enough. Anyway, so yeah, we wanted to talk a little bit about the king himself, Joel Silver, because in that time nobody was doing it better or the
right.
right.
And
I
he
mean,
continued after this.
Yeah, he did. He continued.
God, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, so Joel
Well,
Silver.
McTiernan was also his boy at that time too.
He was.
Yeah.
And Joel Silver had this. We've talked about it before. The whammo rule.
Have we talked about it though?
I don't remember
I don't
talking
think we've
about
ever
it. So,
talked about it, which is why I was like, let's finally do
Really?
it.
Really?
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
let's tell us what is it.
The whammo rule and a whammo chart is something where he used to chart movies, and then every 10 minutes there'd have to be a whammo. Give me a whammo. And a whammo was just an action scene.
Yeah, I think it's a genre. It's like genre premise delivery, right? If you got an action movie, you need an action genre beat every 10 pages.
And apparently he didn't come up with it. It was some Egyptian producer.
I remember hearing
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And the Egyptian producer, the reason they came up with it, I think reels used to be, is it 10 minutes or 20 minutes? I can't remember. I think it was 10 minutes at some point, and he wanted an action scene in every
reel.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense
makes
where
sense.
it came from.
Yeah.
That's
Also,
where it came from.
you guys remember? Didn't Kevin Smith talk about this when he was writing a Superman
Did he?
movie, where he had to add in a scene where Superman fought polar bears?
Yes,
because
I do. Yes.
I think that I remember him talking about this rule, like
The whammo rule.
like he's
yes.
like, why would Superman fight a polar bear? Well, we need an action.
The
scene.
whammo rule.
right, yeah.
Strangely enough, I've never directly hit this, but in the horror genre, I have hit the we're counting the number of scares rule.
You're saying producers
Yeah.
giving you notes?
Yeah. There are a lot of major producers out there that have rules about number of scares. And what the problem with that is, I never understand what the hell a scare is.
What
Like,
they
and
define.
what
It's
they,
subjective.
it's almost like, is it a jump scare? No. Is it? It's like, and I'm like, well, I think there's a scare here, but they don't, and it can be weird with horror especially. But I've
Interesting.
run into that rule a few times in the studio world.
When you're doing whiteboarding, do you do whammos? Do you come up with you don't?
I
it
don't.
doesn't.
I don't, but I am somebody that on spec, I like to have probably more than one every 10 pages.
5 pages
Yeah.
for me.
And some days I'll just be sitting in the shower counting my quote unquote whammos of the
Whammos.
genre, and I
Mhm.
usually like to get up to the 20s or 30s
So-
per script.
Yep.
Comedy would be jokes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Scares,
But-
jokes,
but
Or even
almost like
set pieces.
set pieces. Yes,
Yeah,
the
set
big.
pieces.
It's not just a single joke. It's bigger than that.
I kind of view
What's
it.
the comedy version of an explosion?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when I'm sitting
A fart or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
when I'm sitting there thinking of it, I'm kind of like, what's the cool thing? Like, what thing do
Mhm.
I can't wait till they get to next? Because they're gonna
Yeah.
be like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's my board.
With the attention span shortened, it's got, to me the whammo rule has changed to to 5
I'd
every
say mine.
5 minutes.
Yeah, mine are usually 20 to 30. So
Yeah.
that's would be about
Yep.
every 5 minutes or less.
Yeah.
And some of my when I'm really excited, it's like I have almost one a minute.
Yep.
It's not quite that much, but one every other minute or something. The thing about it is, a whammo could be 5 minutes long for me.
Mhm.
Like if it's a really cool set piece. So
Depending on what it is.
having 20 or 30 could be like
So,
wall to wall whammos.
Like Naked Gun.
Yeah.
it's
that's like a-
nonstop.
That's a whammo every minute.
Yeah, I
Literally.
mean, there's
Yeah.
there's a sequence in Something About Mary where there's like 16 laughs in 3 pages. That's like that's just like one long.
You're
You
right,
know,
right.
it's off the charts.
Yeah, and I feel like in spec screenwriting, these are important because you're trying to show off how clever you are and how you're an idea person. And if you're the person that stuffs your script with cool ideas and they're like, wow, this person is like endless with the cool ideas, then they might hire you to do something.
And you can always trim it down.
You can always
Well,
trim it down.
Yeah,
because-
it's harder to add it in on the back end than it is to start with it.
Yeah.
You know.
In fact, there's something I saw with Die Hard. Somebody said err on the side of too many jokes in Die Hard. I think that was I don't know if that was a D'Souza thing or something, but they said, put as many jokes in it. We can always scale them back.
Yep.
But that was a rule they went into.
I think that's
in the
really
D'Souza
smart.
draft.
Find out what makes it a comedy and then take it back a few notches.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Scale it back
The
a
whole
little.
Seinfeld Tylenol thing.
I,
Find out what kills me and then back it off a bit. Right. So I guess the question is how does Die Hard fit in the whammo rule?
So I started to track them and I was just like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. But it takes a while.
Mm-hmm. It probably fails in the first 10 minutes.
It does.
Easily.
It fails in the first
whammo.
20 minutes.
Yeah, because
it's a plane ride and a car ride.
I think the catalyst.
not genre
the
premise.
catalyst of sorts begins around page 17, 18, the 18-minute mark,
is that
17
when
minute
the
mark.
terrorists just show
I
up?
think
and-
that's when they first show up.
So they
show up in
their
that van-
car shows up, but they don't show up.
So they don't show up in the lobby at that
the
point.
lock-in is 21 minutes.
Yeah, the lock-in, but don't they take out like the?
What's the lock-in, guys?
Maybe you're right.
I don't know. Now I'm wondering.
Let's just wait. I
Yeah,
might
yeah.
be. I might have written it wrong. Maybe you're right. I remember I didn't write it down when they exactly showed up. I just wrote the lock-in. So I might be wrong. So you saying like 15 minutes in you start seeing the terrorists?
17 minutes.
Okay.
I think it was
okay,
the 17
I trust
minutes.
you.
And we're talking about when they pull into the basement,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Well,
in the car that doesn't have the
Do
car
you
in the
see
back.
weapons and stuff?
I thought
The car that doesn't
They
have,
have a car-
ambulance in the
it's-
back.
it's been a little while, and now I want to go back and double check it because I thought that at the 17-minute mark they show up in the lobby
Okay.
of that point.
That's probably right.
But yeah, and it doesn't. It's not the full blown thing,
it's
but
not
it just
the full
begins.
blown. But it's enough that they're a threat.
It's like, oh, it's starting.
Okay.
we got something.
So
going
that
on.
counts.
Yeah,
That's your
Counts.
first big whammo.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, why does the delayed whammo work?
Because I think it's very instructive and it's weird. I just wanted to talk with you guys about like the fact that this is like one of the most famous action movies of all time. For Jamie, he didn't need to see an action movie ever again, and there's no action for 20 minutes. I think, and why is that?
Yeah, and I think the way most, like, if you saw a movie today, what would they do for this? They would put a scene up front where,
To show him
First
in
scene.
action.
or
Yeah.
they'd show Hans
Hans.
Gruber like stealing
It
the
would
plans
be the
or
Inception,
something.
or,
yeah,
sorry, not the
whatever.
Inception.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight Returns plane heist scene,
Right.
in the beginning, and then you go into the.
There would be some kind of
It would be that, or it would be like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer opening where John's chasing another perp in
Perp.
New York
You could do that
before he
too.
gets on the
That's
plane.
what it is.
It'd
Yeah.
be one or the other
You would
to
have
give
that.
you something. It
You
opens
would have
hard.
the whammos right up front.
It wouldn't open with a scene where they're talking about air sickness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Showing his vulnerability.
Showing that
Yeah.
he's not a Superman.
So I think it's interesting. Do you think it would work today for the audience?
I think it could. I think it could work.
I think it.
I mean, if you just release this movie with like it's all shiny and perfect as of now,
Yeah.
HD.
I think it's a solid enough movie. It would.
I'm saying, do you think
But-
10 minutes in, people are staying?
I don't think the producers would let this movie happen. the way it
That's
does.
yeah.
No, I don't think it would happen. I think it still works if it did.
Works so well.
Yeah.
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 It's so we've talked about this now in like this is episode number 4. We're talking about rooting influencer techniques. So there's a guy named David S. Freeman. If you haven't listened to the show before, he gave a seminar that was the single best writing seminar I ever attended.
Yeah, but you never went to my pitch fest. So.
I didn't hear Steven D'Souza. He may have said these amazing things, and he may have talked about this technique I'm about to talk about. It's rooting influencer techniques, and this is where you basically front load for the audience various ways that we can invest in them, right? We empathize with them before we really get to know them. Right off the bat. Like, for instance, in WALL-E, there's no dialogue, and there's like 40 rooting influences techniques in the first 10 minutes. For this one, I'm not going to go through them all because it's just too many, but there are 30 rooting influencers in the first act. So there's no action, but there's 30 moments where we learn something about John that makes us empathize with him and makes us like deepen our investment in him. I'll give you a few, for example.
Give
like,
us 5.
I'll give you 5.
Give us 5.
All right. Well, he makes a joke about being a cop, so that shows us he's funny. Also buries the exposition with a joke, Jamie. I was like,
Yep.
oh, exposition to
Always
joke.
do exposition on a joke.
Exposition to joke. So
Sitcom rule number 57.
And best writing example is always sitcoms.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
Dude, that's I don't envy that job. First time we learn it's his first time riding in the limo, and he sits up front with the limo driver. What does that tell us? He's an everyman, right?
Lower class.
Right.
He's not Charlie Sheen rolling up on. No.
So that's 2.
Inside joke. Right.
That's 2. Okay. 8 minutes in, he's talking to Argyle, and we learn all about. That's another great exposition scene where Argyle is grilling him with questions that he doesn't want to answer, and we learn all this exposition through John reluctantly kind of hinting at what's going on in his life.
Also, it shows patience.
Shows patience, right?
Unending patience.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really important.
It is.
John
like
McClane
is cool.
That's gonna get
Yeah.
him through this situation.
Right.
8 minutes in, I love this foreshadowing, but it also gives us the goal. Argyle says to him as he's leaving the limo, "Your lady sees you, you run into each other's arms, the music comes up, and you live happily ever after, right?" And John says, "I could live with that." But it also that's
what he wants.
That tells us what he
Yeah.
wants, and it also tells us that he's dealing with a painful situation right now. So that's a rooting influencer. 2 more. He bumps into someone carrying drinks, and he apologizes, and the person kisses him. and it's a man, and at that time that was like holy shit, and he just laughs it off. So he's like playful, he's fun loving.
California.
Yeah, California.
Right.
So that shows us he's fun loving.
Not homophobic as a plus.
Exactly.
Right.
Holly asks John to says the kids miss him. She misses him too. So the character is loving towards his family. So that's just 5 of them. There's 30 of those in the first 20 minutes. Yeah. So, and that's why it works, and that's why you don't need the action. It's sort of like character.
Well, they instead of building him up with like action and showing he can handle himself physically, they kind of set up his emotional state in a weird way.
Yes.
More than they do anything else.
It's interesting too, because the movie almost works like, if you didn't know it was an action movie, it works like some kind of dramedy about a guy and his wife, and it's going to be like Kramer versus Kramer or something, right?
Yeah.
And he shows up, but then it also has kind of a sense of dread, like not really dread, but a sense of it's promising certain things. Like when they show the gun, it's like he's got a gun,
right.
and he's a cop, and you just know because we've seen action movies and Chekhov's gun kind of stuff. And then other things, just like when they come up on the tower, there's just something scary about it. It's like a disaster movie.
Yeah,
that's craft more than it is script. But
there's something happening. Like the tower's there. It's tall. It's scary. It's imposing.
Doom. Yeah.
But on the flip side, like he's going through things. Like we're meeting. He has the big stuffed animal, and he's coming to the thing, and
which is another one. Yeah.
She's there in this interesting scenario. This woman in business that. Back in the 80s might have been unusual. Nowadays, no big deal. But
he's a traditional. He's established in that time that he's traditional.
Yes,
because she literally like yells at him about, "I know what you want."
Right.
He doesn't want this. So that I don't know if that's exactly a rooting influencer part right there.
Well, it shows us his flaw.
That's a flaw. That's a flaw right there. Yeah.
And then he goes and finds. It's almost like it could be a catalyst in another movie. He finds she's changed her name.
Yep.
And then they had the blow up. That could be a catalyst in another movie. Or that could be a lock in another movie. The blow up they had, the fight that they have at the Christmas party. If this were another movie. So I think that's
they also
the key.
established that his like low tech versus high tech.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's part of the key of how you have to keep people entertained with the types of things that are entertaining, even if they're not entertaining in an action movie.
Right,
sort
in
of
the
way.
genre premise delivery. There's no
like you said, if this was the beginning of just like a drama,
there's no
it's
whammos.
still kind of good.
Yeah, it has to be good enough to be the beginning of some other movie.
If the terrorists never show up,
show up,
I would watch the movie about this couple arguing for the holidays.
It's compelling.
Yeah, it'd be like The Ref or something.
Love The Ref.
Right, but that's the kind of movie it would be.
It's strangely, when I rewatched it recently, it's a little. I mean, in a fine way, they take their time with it too.
Yeah.
Like you could see another version of this movie where he gets off the plane, boom, he's there, boom, he's in the room, boom. It kind of stretched. They give you a little Christmas time in Hollis, Queens. They give you, they show you the layout of the place. They're setting up the geography for the
they
attack.
use on the security when he's looking up Holly's name. You get to see all of the various things. This exposition is great.
John McTiernan, if he's a master of anything, it's action movie geography. Like no director, in my opinion, no action director sets up the actual geography of a space,
laying out the space
better than John McTiernan. That is what he is a master at. And that's what movies lost when he went to jail. But he seriously is like a master of showing you what's what and where's where and how's how. Right? Yeah.
Certainly, that's what this movie. You get the total geography, even though it's a huge place. You just get the.
Not
feel
sure
for
that's
it.
on the page at all. That's him. I think
Right.
that's direction.
Maybe half and half.
That's directing.
I certainly write that stuff in my
Me
screenplays.
too.
Like
Sure.
if I do a haunted house, I might have a walkthrough.
You gotta
and
have the
I
walkthrough.
teeing them up, and they're showing the
But
place.
this is consistent throughout his career, and that's different writers. And,
And
stuff.
I thought that was really clever. That was the exposition where he's looking for her name, and so you learn things about the layout just by him trying to find where she is. It was it was smooth, it was subtle.
Yep.
Yeah.
We didn't write down the exposition techniques, but there's a lot of great. That was one. Yeah.
So as we talked about too, is that John McClane himself is not from the book. He has changed completely. He's an original creation for the movie in all arguments, right? Does he have an arc? What does John McClane? How does he change?
What do you think, Jamie?
I definitely
Tell us, Jamie.
I like
Tell
to
us.
hear Jamie. I got my thoughts, but
I
want to hear Jamie before I say my own opinion.
I've heard some people debate that he really doesn't have an arc. So here's one way to judge an arc, especially when it's not like a huge arc, like going from horrible Scrooge to I'm throwing turkeys to the people
Yeah.
or something. One way to judge it is if you took the character from the end of the movie, and this is the way I like to judge my character arcs. If you take the character from the end of the movie and just as a mental exercise, put them in the beginning of the movie, would they do things differently?
No.
Okay. I think they would. I think he would. I think he's.
Well,
Yeah.
I think now he's said sorry, and he knows that family is more important than things. So I think he'd approach it different. He wouldn't approach it in a confrontational way. He'd be more
I mean,
understanding.
I think the argument with his wife would be different,
Yeah, that's what I
but
mean.
not in the actual premise of the movie. How's that? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay.
Clarify, Bob.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I think like. I don't know. That's a weird thing.
He learns the lesson, man.
It's a weird thing. You have
It's
to
a weird
bend
thing.
your head around.
I don't think he's learning a lesson and changing are sometimes two separate things to me.
Okay.
Like I think John McClane definitely values his family more after what just happened.
That's what.
I don't think he's a different person.
Okay.
I don't.
I think he's a different person temporarily, at least in this story.
In the story, fine.
By
I
the
can
story.
live with that.
yeah, like we know that he doesn't end up being a different person, which kind of spoils that arc. But for me,
literally- I know.
I'm with you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bob.
It's fine.
So
You guys can be wrong sometimes.
the
I think it's more of a flat arc, to be honest. But go ahead.
I think so. We've talked about in previous episodes. If you're looking for a theme, you go to the classroom, right?
Yeah.
We've seen that to be true.
Classroom themes. yeah.
Classroom. I think if you're looking for an arc, you go to the confessional,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
let's
Him and
look,
Al. Him
Let's
and Al.
look at this.
Confessing to Al.
Let's look at this confessional. He
Yeah.
says,
I'm getting a bad
I'm
feeling
getting a
up
bad
there.
feeling up here.
Yeah.
I do something for me, like find my wife. Tell her I've been a jerk. When things panned out for her, I should have been behind her all the way. We had something great going until I screwed up. She is the best thing that ever happened to a bum like me. She's heard me say I love you 1,000 times, but she never heard me say I'm sorry, and I want you to tell her that. And I think that's it. That's the arc. He realizes
It's
that
where- he has a revelation, of course. Yeah.
yeah, that he was wrong to not be supportive of her moving out here and expanding
Yeah.
her career. And ultimately, I mean, I think it's him accepting responsibility for their separation, which is set up in that argument.
Yeah.
Because when we meet them arguing, that's what the whole argument is about. Like they broke up, and she's basically saying, "You didn't let me do my
Right.
thing," and he's like,
Didn't even
"You should-"
acknowledge it,
right?
really.
And,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the end, and not in an ironic way, he says, "Hey, this is my wife, Holly Gennaro," and she corrects him and says,
McClane.
"Holly McClane."
Right.
No, wait, she doesn't say Holly McClane. No, but
Yeah.
so he even in a non-ironic way, he introduces her as Holly Gennaro. In
Yeah,
the end. And I don't think he would have done that. In the beginning of the movie.
respectful
It's
of
not a
her.
huge arc.
Yeah, well, they set that up. That was
It's not. It's not a huge arc.
I
I'm not
think-
saying it's not an arc. I
think that.
So I
scene-
think the guy who would introduce her as Holly Gennaro in the end, and the guy who would say I'm sorry, would treat things differently in the beginning than he would have.
Yeah, like why would he?
How about this? When you set up the scenario, I was thinking of the entire movie.
Gotcha.
I wasn't thinking of just that
Yeah, that's
part.
mainly what I'm thinking.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, that guy would still do all the stuff he still did.
Right. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay,
Like,
you were kind of.
I was going with the actual a terrorist attacking
Oh,
thing. Yeah, I was like,
no.
okay.
It's more the
Yeah.
emotional side, the
Yeah,
white
yeah.
stuff I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
The battle with the wife.
I think and I think it's all set up in their
He
original
has
argument.
You're right. He momentarily changes.
And
for the
he
next
looks,
year or
for the
two.
next year until Die
Yeah,
Hard 2.
too. Right.
They set up that name thing. He's looking for her to be under McClane, and she's under Gennaro, and then they argue about it. He's like, "I see you didn't miss me enough to use my name."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it's I think he's got.
I think yes, I'll concede that he has an arc.
Okay. We weren't trying to.
No.
No,
Sway
I
you.
still think it's not that big of an arc.
Well,
but-
here's the argument I'd have against how big it is.
yeah,
Like after he has the blow up, doesn't he have a little scene where he's talking to himself and said, "You're so stupid, John.
Yeah,
You're so
And
stupid."
that's a rooting influencer
Yeah.
too. He
So in some ways,
where
you
he's
could-
like almost like I shouldn't even have come.
he's
Yeah.
like,
Right,
real
yeah,
good,
yeah.
John.
yeah.
Real smooth.
Yeah.
Right.
But it almost hints that maybe he's ready to make an apology there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
So-
already on the path.
So maybe he didn't need a big terrorist incident to have to, 'cause,
Right.
But that's the one debate. Like that's why it's a small arc. It's more revealing character than maybe some where
Right.
it's changing. But
It works really well though.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
he
It works
appreciates
really
shit
well.
because he almost just died.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
It's fine.
You're saying it didn't need it.
No, I'm not saying that. I just always, I guess maybe I'm colored by my knowledge of John McClane in
part
general.
2 and part 3.
3, maybe. I don't know. I just never I view John McClane as more of a Superman type character where he has a flat arc.
Oh, interesting.
He will always fall back and falter to what his default position is. And I shouldn't be doing that if I should be thinking about this singularly, not within the.
Right, I got you.
But yeah, John McClane is a fuck up. That's what he is. And we're just seeing a momentary.
So you're looking at it more like an Ethan Hunt type character, since there's 4 movies after this.
Yeah, it's hard not to.
Yeah.
It's hard to erase it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from.
Right, it's my fault.
But speaking of that arc, I mean, you talked about like window character.
Yeah, what is
window
that?
character.
Give us one.
Okay, so you basically, in order to find out how a character is feeling about their goal and the situation and the stakes and the obstacles that they're facing, you need somebody to debate with them how things are going. And
Carl Winslow.
Al is the ultimate
Right.
debate. But this one does some interesting things. In the first act, it's Argyle.
Yeah.
Which I didn't remember.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
Argyle is the one who's like, come on, man, what's your problem? Like, did she hit you or something? And he's like, no. And John doesn't want to talk about it. And Argyle is sitting there debating with him. What's your goal? What are you trying to achieve? Are you getting close to it?
Yeah.
And then when he leaves the car, he even sets up the goal for us,
Mm-hmm.
like I just said. But then it does an interesting thing because Al isn't introduced until midway through the movie, which I didn't remember. Like, in my mind, he's there from the beginning.
No.
And he's so iconic and it's so well done that you think of him like as
part of the whole movie.
huge part of it, but he's only on the second half.
Right.
So they do this interesting thing, which I didn't remember either, where John, since he's isolated, is talking out loud. And every time something bad happens, he's talking out loud to himself. He's like, good job, John. What are you gonna do now? Shit! Like he's constantly like debating what just happened and what are these gonna like. It was so weird. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger never does that.
I think that kind of plays into the comedy of it too,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
it's funny.
Yeah, it's all funny.
But he
yeah.
becomes his own window character.
It's sometimes hard to do that, but it totally works for this
It
character.
totally works, and I didn't remember that. But then Al he's sort of the quintessential window character, right? He's the one you remember in cinema.
Absolutely.
For helping the character through the situation just through dialogue. Yeah.
He's the Wilson, the
He's
volleyball.
Wilson.
Yeah, he needs somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
in
In order to get to the
and-
feelings.
Right, to
Yeah.
find it.
And that's ultimately what it is about. Your character is like going through the rises and falls trying to achieve their goal, and we need to kind of have a barometer of how they're feeling as things are progressing.
Yeah.
And that gets to the heart of the character, and how you do that is through window characters. So this one has 3.
It's almost it is almost weird. Like they didn't write in like he has a police escort to the tower, and it is Al. And
Right.
that way you could get him in there in the beginning
right,
somehow.
get him in there sooner. Like,
yeah, and then
hey, you from out of town? Like I
Right,
heard,
right.
like that would have. I'm surprised they didn't do something like that
That'll
too.
be in
Yeah.
today's version.
That's this
because everything
version.
needs to be tied up in a nice
Tied up,
package.
Yeah.
But
That's
then you would
this
have
version.
Argyle in the end. and
Argyle's
all
the
that.
best. Oh
Right?
my
yeah.
God, I
you need
love
that.
him.
Yeah. You need that
Yeah.
payoff, the setup and the payoff for Argyle. Right.
That's the interest. So speaking of Argyle, it's like all of the side characters have like beginning, middle, and ends in this movie, which is fascinating. Because Argyle
It's really
starts
solid.
It's awesome. Argyle starts off with like as being the driver, the funny guy. I remember as a kid, I loved Argyle. I thought he was awesome. Like every time it cut back to him, I was like, laughing at Argyle. And then but then he also gets, he sees things happen. He gets trapped in the place, and he also kind of helps save the day in the end.
Right.
So even Argyle gets moments like that.
He's tested, even though he's not a character that should be tested,
Right.
Yeah.
and he still rises to the occasion. Right.
Al gets his 3-act structure. He
Mm-hmm.
sets up a problem. He ends up saving the day. He has a character arc. Of
he
has this.
he has a confessional.
with
He has a
his
confessional.
flaw.
He gets a whole story unto himself.
He
Yeah.
finally uses his gun and does the right thing.
Yeah.
instead of
Even-
killing a kid.
Even the
So
the
good.
sleazy worker. What's his name? Ellis.
Ellis has a
full arc.
fall.
Got a full.
Yeah.
full
And he
story.
starts on top and then ends on the bottom, and then the reporter.
The
Louis
reporter.
Matheson.
Yep.
Yeah. He's got his own side story. What is the
villain, the brothers, they have a story.
They have a
that
story.
revenge story
It
comes into
speaks
play.
to the off-screen movie, Jamie, right? What is that? Terry
Terry Rossio
Can
is off screen.
Let me throw something at you guys in the middle of this.
Okay.
Because I read this today. I was reading about Die Hard.
Okay.
Just because I haven't. I've never deep dived on Die Hard. I just watched it a million times. But somebody posed the question. They were like, if John McClane just didn't do anything.
The Raiders of the Lost Ark thing.
Well, they would have just stolen the money and nobody would have gotten really hurt. Like if he didn't.
Interesting.
Like they would have just gotten away with the money and they wouldn't have killed anybody because they really had no interest in hurting anyone.
Takagi would have gotten killed.
He was going to get killed anyway.
He might have, yeah.
Yeah, he was going to get killed anyway.
Yeah.
But the bulk of the people would have been fine. There wouldn't have needed to be all this hoopla.
That's so interesting.
And they would have just gotten away with money.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Because the person was arguing that the stakes are high for the situation, but they were not high stakes for the world or anything. So it was like, if he just didn't do anything,
wow,
it would have just been a lot of money lost by a corporation and a bunch,
Who did get killed, though, besides the bad
It's
guys? Ellis.
I think
yeah.
Ellis and the bad guys. That's it.
Mhm.
Did any cops get killed or anything? I don't remember, like the feds or anything.
Oh, the helicopter feds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they might have lived had John McClane done nothing.
But they were assholes.
Yeah.
They were at Johnson and Johnson are assholes.
Cinematically, they're
I'm not
defined
saying
as,
I want that movie, but I'm saying I've never thought about that.
Yeah,
in
never
my
thought
life,
of it. Yeah,
I've considered John McClane just going like, just gonna wait this out.
yeah.
Holly's probably just gonna be lost in the crowd. She'll be okay. They'll take what they want and get out of here. And especially because he's listening and he knows they're full of shit.
Yeah.
So he could have just like,
Yeah.
they'll get their money. They'll be there gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
And 1980s first responder training said to leave the situation alone and just time him out.
Right.
So he actually probably went against protocol.
Interesting.
I mean, they aren't real terrorists. They don't want to hurt anyone, and they don't want anything but the money.
yeah. No,
Is that Raiders of the Lost Ark?
you're good.
But John would have been divorced.
That's
It's
right.
true. His
And-
marriage would not be saved.
Yeah, and
And-
Al wouldn't have arced.
Those two FBI
Argyle
agents'
would
deaths
have
were
grown
worth
as a
it.
character.
Al wouldn't have had his moment.
Yeah.
I'm not. That guy wasn't saying that.
They became better people. A few people had to die. but Argyle.
Just two
Canal-
FBI agents.
That's right.
I bet that was in the punch up that their names are the same. That had to be.
Johnson.
That had to be Johnson and Johnson. Had to be.
That's a
They have
Stephen
their own
D'Souza.
off-screen
So-
movie. Explain the off-screen movie, Jamie.
Yeah, an off-screen movie is basically saying what are the events that happen outside of the movie we're watching that could be their own movie. And the theory by Terry Rossio is the better that movie is, the better your movie is, the movie you're watching.
It's a good test of concept.
Yeah.
And this one, man, there's
Yeah.
off-screen movies everywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Which
awesome.
are
We just talked about.
Yeah,
them.
which are all the
I
characters.
just thought it was an interesting time to bring it up. We haven't talked about it in a while.
when you have like 4 or 5 characters that all could headline a movie, you got something
Yeah.
special.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in the Netflix special, which I know we're talking about movies that made us, that had a really great moment where they talked about good news, bad news.
Mhm.
Jamie, can you tell us what good news, bad news is?
Yeah. And
We talked about it with Solo,
have.
I think.
We did.
Solo
That's
was
the
a-
only time we've ever
We
brought it
talked
up.
about it, yeah.
So good news, bad news is a technique. And I've seen it in a lot of different places. I think I found something about William Martell that recently.
Mm-hmm.
He has, if you Google good news, bad news, William Martell, I think you'll find one of his script tips. It's also in his book, Secrets of Action Screenwriting, which probably mentions Die Hard
I'm
in a bunch
sure.
of places. I know it does. I have the book.
I feel like a
read it
lot of the books I've read.
Bill, you're
always
awesome
mention-
if you listen to
Yeah.
this.
Die Hard's mentioned frequently in script stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Secrets of Action Screenwriting, it was written around. It was probably, I don't know if that was written around that time. It was probably written in the 90s, but it looms heavy on that book. So
Okay.
take a look at that book if you're interested. It's a great book. So good news, bad news is basically it's something that happens within a scene. It's kind of a way to plot an action scene or a suspense scene. Though you can use it for other
For
things.
comedy, it would work
Yeah.
just as well.
Like
Right, yeah.
so
Drama.
something good happens.
Oh, definitely with drama, with a fight,
Mhm.
an argument.
I,
Perfect.
I'm trying to think of what they used in the special. It's a special. Like there's specials on Netflix.
In the Netflix special,
It was the roof scene.
It was the roof. Him like
I mapped out a bunch. I could give you examples.
Okay, why don't you give the example?
I mean,
Jimmy did his book report.
I did my book report. I only did a couple.
It works best
but
by
they're
example.
great.
Yeah,
They're great. Good news. John finds a fire alarm and sets it off. Bad news. The terrorists call off the fire department, and Tony comes to the floor where they know he set off the fire alarm.
Right.
Good news. John kills the terrorists coming to kill him. He finally has shoes he can take. Bad news. The shoes are too small. Of all the terrorists in the world, I got to kill one with feet smaller than my sister.
Right.
Good news. John sits atop the elevator watching the terrorists react to him giving them Tony's body. Bad news. The terrorists send the elevator rising up while he's on top of it. So it's just this movie is just filled with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were talking about like within the scene of jumping off the roof while it exploded. Like, good news, there's a fire hose. Bad news is that he can't break through the glass.
He can't get in the window.
Good news is he can shoot through it. Bad news is that once he gets through it, the fire thing is going to disconnect and start to pull him down through it. Good news is he can untie himself. Right.
Yeah,
So it's constantly, back
it's
and
just
forth.
back and forth.
Yeah.
The weird thing is, and some of your Jimmy, your examples, it's normally used for like an action scene, like you're explaining.
Right. Yeah.
But some of your examples, I actually use this technique for outlining, sometimes to pull a story out. When I'm just sitting in front of a blank page, figuring out what the scenes are, I tend to go through this good news, bad news thing. And there's a thing I've mentioned before, a novel technique by a guy named Swain. I can't remember what his books are, like Secrets of Novel Writing or something. Everything's secrets, right?
Secrets of
today. But
I shall reveal.
He has a thing that says every scene is a scene or a sequel. And a scene is a scene of like somebody taking action, and then it ends in disaster. So it's like good news, and then it hits the bad news. And then a sequel is a reaction to that.
Okay.
And then making a decision to do something else for the next scene. So it constantly goes in this zigzaggy good news, bad news,
Sort
good
of,
news, bad
they
news.
follow the same kind of idea.
It's the same thing, except this is more for scene work,
Okay.
as opposed to like individual beats of a scene.
Gotcha.
And
It's like the
I
single
use it.
best, I think, script writing advice you could ever give people.
Yeah.
In my opinion, this good news, bad news
Therefore,
thing.
Yeah.
Well, that
Yeah.
too, but like the good news, bad news thing, it's so simple.
It's so
and
simple.
It can make anything better.
Yeah.
It just makes everything better instantly.
I can't think of an example. Maybe you guys will think of one, but it's also the place where coincidence is bad, but sometimes when coincidence happens that goes against the hero,
Gets you into trouble.
it's good.
That's the quote unquote Pixar rule. That's not a Pixar
It can
rule.
be
Coincidences
it's
to get
sellable
you
if it's negative.
into trouble are
Yeah.
good. Coincidences to get you out of trouble are cheating.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
it's the one place where sometimes the bad news can just be a funny
You go,
coincidence.
"Aw,
And you go,
man."
what bad luck this guy has.
Because that is a coincidence. What a coincidence that his shoes are too small.
right.
Like
There's things
now
like
he
that.
can't have shoes still. Yeah.
If they did
you
fit,
don't
though, I
think
don't think
about
the
it.
audience would turn
no,
on the movie.
But,
But
that's
yeah.
what he's saying. It's
Yeah, I know
because
what
it
you
doesn't
mean.
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you find shoes just randomly, that would be bad because then you're just giving them a freebie.
Right.
But when you find shoes and they're too small and it works against them, that's good.
Great.
So, yeah.
You're like, oh shit.
Thank God this wasn't made with cell phones.
Oh my god.
They just have a cell phone jammer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
that
would.
would be-
They would just have a cell
it
phone
just-
jammer.
Is that your go-to, Jamie, when you're doing your action
What you
scripts
gotta
now
do, right?
in
Cell phone
2019?
jammer.
Okay, insert the cell phone jammer.
Just put a card in the front that says the following takes place in a universe without cell phones. Thank you. That's it. That's all you need. Let's talk about the villain,
Yes.
Hans Gruber.
So, in my opinion, Hans Gruber is the greatest villain ever. That's my opinion.
In all of literary history, too.
He's my favorite villain. Hans Gruber is my favorite villain. And I think he's my favorite because I almost root for him,
Yeah.
which is a bizarre thing to say. I think it was Fox used to have a thing. I never saw it, but in their offices they had this big thing as you went to the elevators that said, it might have even been in this building, but it said, "What's the villain's plan?" It was like painted across the thing.
Yeah.
Because in their opinion, action movies were all about villains' plans. Action movies are really about heroes reacting to villains' plans. So having a cool villain's plan is the engine of the action movie. And there's no movie that has, in my opinion, a cooler, interesting twist and turn villain's plan than this one. The villain's plan, the fake terrorist thing, the twist, the fact that they're out for money.
The fact that it could work if he were a normal terrorist, too.
Yep.
Yeah.
but
Yep.
he's subverting that itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good.
And like and he's just such a kind of cool, fun character. He's super dangerous, but he also kind of has a sense of humor and a weirdness. to him.
personable as hell.
Personable, yeah.
Benefits of an educated, like,
Yeah.
he's educated.
Yeah, like when he's on the phone, like giving the terrorist demands, like that's such a funny scene. Like you're
Yeah.
kind of rooting for
I
him.
read
You're
it
like,
in
this
Time
guy's cool.
magazine, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And then he calls out Takagi Suits, the designer on the suits, and he says, "I have 2 in my closet myself."
Right.
Like, so he's stylish.
And
Yeah.
and then he's super smart. Like when the fly in the ointment shows up, he zigs and he zags in these cool ways.
He's
to solve
always
the
ahead of.
problem.
He's even ahead of John McClane. Like, and every
Mhm.
time John McClane is giving him a hit, he's like, "Whatever."
Yeah, I always read that like at the Ellis scene, you
Yeah.
know, where Ellis
Mhm.
like pretty much promises that he can get John McClane.
Mhm.
I always read that as the Hans Gruber knows that he can't.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He just did that to gain the slightly more information
Just to get
that
a
he
little
had,
bit. Yeah.
because he wants to know what kind of man he's dealing with.
Yeah.
He knew he was killing Ellis
Yeah.
from the get go.
What
like,
else
this,
can I get?
Yeah,
out
he's
of-
too smart to know that this guy's not. He's a fucking moron. He's an idiot douchebag, and I will end up killing him. But I need to learn what I'm dealing.
Maybe I
with.
can get John McClane in the
And he did. He
process.
learned what he was
Yeah.
dealing with. He learned the kind of man John is from that phone, just that conversation.
Yeah.
He's
The
not a
one,
moron.
the one thing I wanted to comment on to couple, I agree with you. So I like to use I read, for those of you who don't know, I read amateur scripts all day.
Mhm.
And one of the core problems that I read in amateur scripts is involving the villain's plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I usually see is 3 things. One, you have a villain with a plan, but the villain's plan is kept a mystery on purpose. And then the whole story, the villain is doing things and the hero is doing things to stop the villain, but you don't know what the villain's goal is, right?
Right.
And then in the end, it's revealed the villain had a plan all along, and here's what it is. And you go, oh, okay, but you're not able to feel anything about
And-
page 1 to page 100 because you don't know what it is that the hero is trying to stop. I see that all the time.
And with this movie, like, we're let in. Unlike McClane, we're let in with the villain in this movie before anyone.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Maybe that's the part
we
of
have
that
full awareness.
full
Yeah,
awareness
oh, yeah.
and almost like a sympathy because we know what he's trying to do
Yeah,
now,
we have
and no one
full
else knows.
awareness.
Yeah.
Full awareness.
We're let into his circle.
We couldn't be more clear about what the plan is,
Right.
right? And so
Yeah.
so then the second problem I run into, and then I'm going to compare how this one does the total opposite. The second problem I won't run into is the villain doesn't have a plan,
Mm-hmm.
and he just shows up and he's just doing shit from scene to scene. I say he or she or they, and they're just doing bad things from scene to scene
He's
to
just winging
interrupt the hero, and the
Yeah.
villain doesn't have a plan at all. The third one, and this is the one that's the most frustrating because the writer has all the tools and they just don't use them, and then the next drafts get really, really good when you point it out, is the villain has a plan. We know what the plan is. The hero is trying to stop the villain from achieving the plan, or the villain is trying to stop the hero from achieving their plan. But then we never get a reminder. We're never shown how the villain is progressing on their plan. Like, for instance, the Death Star, in a lot of scripts I see, I always say this is an empire without a Death Star,
Mhm.
is my note, because you never are shown whether it's closing in on the planet to
Mhm.
destroy, and all of a sudden it's there at the planet and it destroys it. And you're like, well, it's been 100 pages since I
So
saw the
what
Death
was
Star.
happening in
How was I
between?
supposed to feel anything
right,
about
right.
it?
You're saying there's
So
no clock almost.
there's no tracking.
This one has a great
reminders.
clock with,
So-
with the locks.
And that
Locks,
so you have a script where you have everything you need, all the ingredients for a great story, but it doesn't feel like a great story because we're never reminded how the villain is progressing on their plan. This one this is why, if anybody's ever going to fight me on this, I'll use Die Hard from now on since I clocked this.
Mhm.
This one, from the second we meet, we learn their plan. This one has 16 goal reminders. And we never go more than 4 minutes without hearing or seeing from Hans Gruber or someone on the team how close they're getting to getting the money.
Right.
And that's why it feels so gripping. That's why there's constant urgency. It's the reminders. And I'll give you an example. Carl says, "I want blood," and Hans says, "And you'll have it, but let Heinrich plant the detonators and let Theo open the vault. Then you can tear the building apart looking for this man. Until then, we do not alter the plan." We get 16 moments like that. and that's why it feels the scripts I read all day don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Also, maybe the most celebratory moment in the movie is when they actually open the vault. Like, you actually see it,
Right.
and it's celebrated.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, but like that's such a huge moment in
Yeah.
the movie.
The Ode to Joy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't usually get to see the villain win and lose in a movie, and I feel like you do in Die Hard.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. They kind
Yeah.
of almost achieve their goal.
They achieve their
get it,
goal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They just don't get out with it.
Right,
Ah.
right. Like,
It was
yeah,
just-
the ticking clock of the locks actually succeeds.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just as they planned, the FBI, what does he say? I give you the FBI. You asked
Give
for
you
a
the
miracle, I give you the FBI.
FBI. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But
That's
I think that's why he's such an iconic villain also, is because we know his plan and then we get reminded of it and how they're feeling about the plan. And he's super chill the entire time.
Mhm.
Like, things are going bad. John is killing one person after another, and Hans is like, that's okay. We got one lock left. Everything.
it's also a character thing, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing about superior position, the fact that we are tracking him not quite equally with John, but almost.
Yeah.
Almost, like near equally.
They're almost both protagonists.
Yeah, once he
some
comes
ways,
on the
yeah.
scene.
I-
Yeah.
Right.
I'd almost be. I didn't do this. I should have tried to do this. I almost wonder if you tracked rooting influences for the villain in this case, if you'd actually come up.
It
with
would
some.
be
'Cause
equally
there's
high.
some like underdog.
And that, so that's
you
and
know,
that's one of
intelligence,
the keys
humor.
of those.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can take all of those rooting influencers and tweak them to the negative and make somebody a villain, but you can also use those positives to make
Mhm.
the villain interesting. Just
It's
like
also
you said.
interesting that making somebody a petty criminal is a rooting influencer over making them a terrorist.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's true though, right?
Suddenly
when
they're
you
a-
learn that it's not a
Right.
religious or political thing, you're like,
Right.
oh, this guy just wants money.
Mhm.
I like money.
And he's fucking with with all the FBI. He's
Right.
like telling them, free this person, free that. But it doesn't mean anything to him.
He's attacking politics and authority
Yeah.
instantly with his plan. Right.
Yeah.
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 That's really interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jamie. I think if we track the rooting influencers for Hans, they'd be all of those things.
Yeah, I'm not sure that works with any villain, but
No.
for him in particular, and that's why he's my favorite villain. I think
Yeah.
of all.
Like literally of all time.
I can't think of anybody I'd like better, or
Okay.
I wouldn't want to emulate as much as
in
Hans
your
Gruber.
writing,
in my
your
writing.
storytelling.
In your
I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on the story, obviously.
Yeah, the
It's
needs
a great
of the-
choice.
the
I'm
needs
not-
of the
I'm not
story.
dogging on you.
Yeah,
I can't really
Yeah.
think. I can't really think of one that I love as much.
Yeah.
And in some ways, he killed certain things for me because he's so good. Like you'll never be able to pull off some of the things they pulled off with that. It
Yeah.
just feels like an imitation.
I think.
And well, Die Hard was the king of imitations coming
Yeah.
after it. Everything was Die Hard on a bus, Die Hard on a
Mhm.
computer, Die Hard on a plane, Die Hard on a boat. We did our speed episode.
Speed
Die Hard,
versus Speed 2.
yeah, yeah. But one thing we haven't talked about is what is the theme of this movie?
Okay. The Christmas debate. What do you guys think about the Christmas
Well,
debate?
do you think that is even straight up the theme? I mean, like, wouldn't you say like it'd be like appreciate what you have or something like that?
Yeah.
Like, as far as
family's
action-
more important.
That's what it
than-
is.
I think,
Family's
yeah.
more.
What is
yeah.
the classic Christmas movie theme?
Family is more important than material things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is
Than-
the best things in life
Family's
aren't
more-
things, they're people. Right?
Family's more important than your own pride.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's about materialism versus right. And so if you look at the way this story is constructed,
Right.
Hans Gruber and his team, they want material possession above in exchange for killing people. They will kill anyone in their way. They will kill their family. There's many scenes where they're like, he's blah, blah, like just blow up the roof. Like
Yeah, they don't
like,
care.
right?
Mhm.
John, Holly, Al, all they want is the safety of others. They're out to save the people, the hostages, and when they're reunited, it's all about like connecting with the people that you love. I mean, it's Christmas.
So, what you're positing, Jimmy, which I love, is that unlike all the online arguments about is Die Hard a Christmas movie, because you can easily argue that it's not because just because it takes place during Christmas doesn't mean it is a Christmas movie. It is because it does take place during Christmas. It's in the soundtrack. It's all over the movie. But what you're arguing is a third thing.
the thematic resonance.
You're saying
of the movie.
yes, the theme of the movie
And I
is
think
a Christmas theme.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And I'm saying that it's even, and I bet you in less, I don't know the answer to this question, but I bet you in earlier drafts, the watch played a bigger part in the writing, that there was a bigger story around the watch, because they make a line about the watch. They show the watch early on. It's a Rolex, by the way.
Yeah.
Remember the Rolex?
Rolex, yeah.
Holly was gifted the Rolex, but they don't really make much to do about it. But in the end, Hans Gruber is holding on to a material possession that is like hailed by some people in the 80s, the Rolex watch. And John unlashes the material possession, and that's what leads to
So
Hans
killing
Gruber's
the villain
death.
has to do with letting go of material things.
Possessions.
That
I'm
is-
saying,
that
it's
is-
there.
That's definitely a really amazing argument, I think.
It's there.
Thematically,
But
Die
I
Hard is
think
a Christmas
I
movie.
think all the villains in the movie are after materialistic stuff, and all the heroes in the movie are after reconnecting with the people they love. And the
all
safety
the
of
villains
others.
too, which we kind of haven't covered, is William Atherton's a villain in this movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he's the best.
He's totally. And the lesson they learn from him is, I mean, she defends her family by punching him in the face,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So even her arc,
yeah.
to some degree, is about
Protect
that.
your
like
family.
your family over,
Yeah.
protect your family over all
over
things.
fame and
Over-
you know,
yeah,
she
fame
could have
and-
been on TV.
Right.
Nah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my argument, that it is a Christmas theme. The best things in life aren't things, they're people.
That is interesting. I
Yeah.
like it. I really like that.
Yeah.
I don't think I've
It's a
ever heard
Christmas
anyone
movie,
argue that
man.
in that aspect.
That's just my
Mhm.
What do you think,
like it.
Jamie?
I wasn't trying
like
to
it.
put on
How
the
about it?
So you think you're saying you Die Hard is a Christmas movie?
I've always been I mean, I think any movie could be a Christmas movie, but especially if it takes place during Christmas and stuff.
Well, and
why
that's the
not?
mundane.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The
Yep.
mundane is the Christmas party.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I've always thought of it as a Christmas movie. It is interesting that it came out in July, though, 'cause and the fact that I experienced it in July, I feel it as a summer movie because I saw it during a 1988
Yeah.
summer many
Right.
times. So I kind of remember that summer. So it's kind of funny when it was first started to be adopted as a Christmas movie. I was like, it was also kind of cool when it's super hot in the summer
Mhm.
to think of a Christmas movie.
Mhm.
It was
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
cool that it was a cool summer movie.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's with the themes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense as a Christmas movie. Why not? We need an action.
I think the theme
We need an
argument is the
action
best
Christmas.
argument for it, and it all
Besides the aesthetics, you're saying.
Well, that's if you look at the more like the awful, stupid online arguments, they don't ever touch on theme,
Mm,
right? They never touch the theme of the movie,
gotcha.
and I think that adds to one side more than the other.
Gotcha.
So I would say,
I-
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think. I mean, this has nothing to do with.
Does it matter?
No.
Theme is the most important part for the script, I think.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
But for me, the fact that it has so much Christmas music, because it does have Christmas time
Yeah.
and Holiday.
I mean, it's literally in the score of the movie.
Yeah, there's 4 different Christmas songs in the score.
yeah.
It's got Christmas things. It's got
Someone
Christmas
didn't tell
jokes.
Michael Kamen if it wasn't a Christmas movie.
Right.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird that it's such a like a heated debate.
But to me,
But-
that's what it falls down to, the theme thematically.
Yeah.
I think at first it started as sort of a joke, you know.
and
like
then people started
Probably,
getting
yeah.
weirdly
People
real
said-
about it.
Got
people
really
said, "What's your-
touchy.
The internet.
people said, "What's your favorite Christmas movie?" And they wanted to hear "It's a Wonderful Life" or something like that.
You say that Hans Gruber quote, "Gentlemen, I give you the internet."
internet.
You know, it's, instead of the FBI. Yeah, that's what happens. They're gonna make it real and sad and toxic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Die Hard.
Die Hard.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else left?
I just wanted to, this is the end of year 2 for us.
Oh,
Isn't
is
that
it?
crazy?
Yeah.
Is this New Year's? Is this New
This will
Year's
be
Eve?
New Year's
This
Eve.
is New Year's Eve that I'm releasing this. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
So we're about to go to Times Square, the three of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. right.
Hang out, watch the ball drop.
Hang out with Ryan Johnson and Mike Flanagan.
That's right. The
Our-
Baltimore
our-
contingent, or Maryland contingent.
the Maryland contingent of people.
Mhm.
Well, 2 years. That's a
Yeah.
big
It's
deal.
awesome.
Yeah.
I've
Well,
learned a
because we
lot.
started in January 2 years ago.
Yeah. Technically, it's 48 episodes. It's 12 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for anyone that's been listening, thank
Thank
you
you.
for that, for keeping up with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan, Mike, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sorry to anyone that Jamie screwed their names up.
Yeah,
Over the
over
time,
2
there's
years.
probably you could make a montage of
Trying to
Jamie
think of
screwing
all
up
the
names.
Sorry to any false information we got wrong. I got
Yeah,
wrong.
I got wrong stuff before.
Anything
for
I was
sure.
just plain wrong about.
That's
It's
not a
probably
rooting
lot.
influencer.
But
You
these
asshole.
are resolutions. I don't know.
I don't know. It's just 2 years. We're doing
I
it
think
for 2
it's
years.
really cool.
Yeah. No.
I
we did
thought
for
it was
2
worth
years.
mentioning.
Yeah.
What's the best New Year's movie?
Ooh.
That's a good.
I-
It's
I
not
don't
New
know.
Year's Eve.
Yeah.
The movie New Year's Eve.
We did When Harry Met Sally. That's a good.
That's
the
a good
whole
New Year's
thing
Eve
isn't
movie.
New Year's, but the
Yeah,
climax
that's
is
right.
New Year's.
I consider that a New Year's Eve movie,
Okay.
though.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good
And
one.
I really hate you.
I don't know. I mean,
forgot.
I need a list.
I don't really know. I can't think of them off the top of my head.
I need to see a list. Like 200 cigarettes or something, isn't that
Oh.
it?
Love.
Yeah.
Jamie says, Ugh,
No,
I
it's
like
just-
that movie.
Yeah,
It's not even so bad.
Dave
It's just
Chappelle's
it
cab
doesn't feel
driver
like
in
a
that
New
is so
Year's,
good.
know.
Yeah,
Right.
I got you.
Doesn't
Forrest
feel like what I
Gump?
want to watch.
That has New Year's in it, but
Eh.
that's not Boogie Nights.
Eh. Jesus.
Great New Year's
Ding.
scene. Yeah, great New Year's scene. But I don't.
Yeah.
A movie that like all hinges on New Year's.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see a
It's
list.
surprising that there aren't more movies
Right.
about New Year's.
I've never seen
Right
New Year's
in with your
Evil.
New Year's
My favorite,
favorites.
Ghostbusters 2.
There you go.
Done. Ghostbusters
Done.
2. That's my
Yes.
favorite one.
Okay.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Doesn't really. It
Mm-hmm.
does hinge on New Year's because it's about
Yeah, they
the
sing.
end of the world.
They sing.
and they sing. It
yeah,
ends with them
that,
singing the song.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's my favorite New Year's Eve movie.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll put my foot down. 2 years. You should know. All right, guys. I think that that's
Thank you for
everything.
listening, guys.
Thanks.
So all acquaintance be forgotten.
Yes.
To old
Thanks for
acquaintance.
2 years of whatever this was.
Yeah.
Yeah. We love you. Bye.
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 You have just listened to Writer's Blockbusters, a screenwriting podcast featuring two professionals and another guy. Available only on Thundergrunt.